Does saying no make you feel guilty? Like really bad? Like you really want to, even if it's just a small favor. Maybe the favor just kind of puts you off your schedule. You've got something planned and you just can't do it. It's just going to throw you off a little bit. And you want to say no. But even if it's just a simple no, and there's probably somebody else that could do the favor, you can't for some reason. Just can't bring yourself to do it. Or you feel a tremendous amount of guilt. If that's you, you probably weren't taught boundaries. You were taught survival. In fact, many of us who have childhood trauma that haven't worked it out, many of us were probably taught survival. Or maybe not even taught survival. We learned it on our own. In the first episode, we talked about cage bound, kind of trap ourselves in the trauma. And I used my bird, Corwin. And what happens is when birds are cage bound through either neglect or some kind of abuse, they learn that nothing outside the cage can be trusted. So they fear it and they'll attack if something else outside of the cage tries to come in. And I kind of use that as an analogy for us who have been through childhood trauma of some kind, growing into our adulthoods, and we carry our trauma through or carry it forward into our adult lives. And we want to get out of that, right? We become cage bound by making the same decisions over and over again and getting the same results either through toxic relationships or abusive relationships, just kind of stunting our growth in our world. So that was how I defined it in our first episode. In the second episode, I talked about choosing to get out of that cage. Again, using Corwin as an example, because Corwin did eventually choose to get out of the cage. And Corwin did eventually have a happy ending. In the third episode, talked about making that choice to get out of the cage and then reclaiming your identity and reframing the names that our past namers gave us. And now, today, we're going to talk about being healthy and establishing boundaries and why people with trauma didn't often use boundaries and why we didn't often use boundaries. So children, again, as children, we weren't taught survival strategies. We adjusted. We learned. We learned that pleasing people kept us safe. We learned that staying quiet kept us safe. We learned that not asking for anything or advocating for ourselves kept us safe, right? And all of those things kept us safe, helped us survive our childhood trauma. Where that becomes a problem is when we become adults. When we carry those types of survival skills into our adulthood, it doesn't help anymore, right? Think about just little things. Like, let's say you're in line at a grocery store. You've got a cart full of groceries. You've spent your time putting things in that cart, and you've spent your time in line just like everybody else. And then somebody else cuts right in front of you, takes that spot. And you don't do anything about it, don't say anything. But you turn to the person behind you and you just kind of give them a look like, "Did you see that?" And that person just shrugs their shoulder. And so you stand there and you don't say anything. That's one example. Just something small. You can always choose to just not say anything. How about when you're at a restaurant and your server gets your order wrong, brings your food? Something small, right? You can just say, hey, I didn't order this, or I ordered my steak medium well. This is like really well done. No, you didn't say that. You just ate the steak. Another little small thing, right? Or let's think of something a little bit bigger, like maybe addressing an issue with your boss that might affect your pay. You might want to talk to your boss about something that might affect your pay, right? But your survival skills as a child taught you not to ask for anything, because that's kept you safe then. But if you don't learn how to advocate for yourself, and instead you've learned that not speaking up kept you safe, and so now as an adult, and not speaking up about something that might affect your pay, well, that's not going to help you. Now let's think about bigger issues. Let's talk about something major. When you don't want to have sex with somebody, not saying no, and just going with it because you don't feel like you should say no. It's a big issue, right? So boundaries. I'm not going to define it in the clinical sense. I'm not a therapist or a psychologist. I'm not licensed in any of that stuff. Boundaries. It's where I end and someone else begins. Okay? It's where you end and someone else begins. Your boundary is all you and inside of you. Okay? You're protecting you, your space, your heart, your body, your mind, your peace, your value, your worth, your money, your children, your property. It means I don't have to absorb other people's emotions. It means I don't have to rescue everybody. It means I don't have to explain every decision that I make. It means I don't have to earn the right to be treated with respect. It means no can be a complete sentence. The guilt thing. The guilt thing. Boundaries are not walls, okay? Boundaries are doors with locks. So we don't have to feel bad about putting boundaries in place, about establishing them. We're not building walls. We're not building a fort. We're not locking everybody out. We're not being mean. What we're doing is establishing rules for ourselves. What are we accepting in our lives? And what are we not accepting? Boundaries are doors with locks on them. And knowing when we can open the doors and when we can close the doors. That whole guilt thing, being afraid that someone's going to be angry because we're saying no, or establishing those rules for ourselves, being afraid that somebody's going to have hurt feelings, being afraid that someone's going to end a relationship with us, all those guilty feelings, let me tell you something. Feeling guilty is not proof that we're doing something wrong. Feeling guilty is proof that we're doing something different. Because if you think back to when you were a child, that little feeling guilty was the survival instinct. Standing up for yourself, that little nagging feeling of feeling guilty was shame-based. It kept you safe then. But you don't have to be afraid of not being safe now. You are grown and not living in that childhood trauma anymore. You can establish boundaries now. You don't have to survive that childhood trauma anymore. So that guilty feeling is not proof that you're doing something wrong. It's just proof that something's different. You're making a choice that is different from what you used to. That's all it is. And you can listen to a different voice now. That's not something saying that what you're doing is something that you should feel guilty over. The different voice you can listen to is the different voice that says no. The one that you've been ignoring and just saying yes instead, you can start listening to the one that says no now. 'Cause that one is the one that's been right all this time. The one that you used to have to shut down when you were a child, you can listen to that one. Now, when you start establishing boundaries, the people who benefited from your lack of boundaries, they're going to push back. Not because they're evil, but because it's different, because the relationship will be different now. Because where they used to maybe get away with things with you, they're not going to anymore. Because now you get to say, there are some things that I'm accepting in my life, but not everything. There's going to be more advocacy now coming from you. And it's going to be different for them. They're not going to be used to that. So there might be some anger directed towards you. There might be some guilt tripping. There might be some hurt feelings. That's a them problem. Okay? And you can assure them, you can say, this is not about you. This is about me. Because it is. Boundaries are yours. You can say, these are my boundaries for my life. These are mine. This is what I'm accepting into my life. And you can own them. What they choose to do with your boundaries is up to them. And how they feel is up to them. And they may be valid in their feelings, but you can't control other people's feelings. And you don't need to try. You don't need to feel guilty about how other people feel about your boundaries. The boundaries aren't a punishment. You're not punishing anybody by instilling your boundaries. It's not a control tactic. You are not establishing boundaries to manipulate anybody. You're not establishing boundaries to control people. You're not establishing boundaries to punish people. You're not giving anyone a silent treatment. We're trying to live a healthier lifestyle. And you're putting yourself, let's say, on a diet plan. You're allowing more nutrition into your life. You're allowing a healthier lifestyle. You can compare it to a physical nutrition. Do that. What do you do when you're trying to lose weight and get fit. You're going to work out, you're going to eat healthy, you're going to cut out the sugar or maybe reduce the sugar, you're going to reduce junk food. These are boundaries. You're going to wake up earlier, you're going to sleep earlier. These are boundaries. These are internal boundaries. So what does that mean for you in regards to relationships maybe? These are just examples. Maybe it means you don't stay up late talking with your friends every night for hours on end. Maybe. Maybe it means you don't engage in gossip. Maybe it means that instead of gossip, you spend more time talking about hobbies or self-improvement. Or how is the job going? More quality of life conversations. Switching out the gossip, which could be the sugar, then junk food, for quality of life things. How is your financial health? Have you talked to an advisor or a planner? Are you getting help with your debt? Are you guys budgeting right? How are your kids? How's your mom doing? That's replacing all of that junk food with fruits and vegetables. These are boundaries. Again, boundaries are not walls, they're doors. And all you're doing is learning when to open them and when to close them. You're not building a prison. You're learning what's acceptable for you and what's unacceptable for you in order to live a healthy life. I told you about how Corwin got out of his cage. He didn't just get out of his cage. I'd been leaving his door open to be curious and to show him that he wasn't locked in. And he was watching the other birds in their freedom because they were out of their cage. And Corwin, I'm not sure if you saw my shorts talking about him. Corwin decided to get out. He flew. And I caught him like a football eventually. When he decided to leave his cage, he did it with all his joy. He just decided, this is my chance, I'm going to do it. And he flew. But he didn't know what he was doing. He had no clue. He flew into wall after wall after wall and window after window. And don't make me sing the song. You know what song I'm talking about? But he was going to hurt himself. He was going to hurt himself, break a wing or something. He was just hitting everything, and I caught him. As soon as he headed straight for him, caught him like a football, tucked him in, put a throw over him, took him to the vet, put him back in his cage, took him to the vet, and I got his wings clipped. Got his not all his wings, or all his feathers. I got his flight feathers clipped. And what that did was it limited his height and the distance of his flight. What that allowed him to do, what it allowed me to do and for him, was to be trained in his boundaries. It would allow me to teach him safety, to teach him the rules of the house, where he could go while he was growing his flight feathers out. And this is going to be the same for you as you establish your boundaries. You're going to learn what's safe for you, what you can accept in your life, and what you can't. And it's going to be setting the boundaries for you and your the people who benefited from you not having boundaries. It's going to be them learning what is acceptable for them to bring into your life and what is not acceptable. Corwin, by the time his flight feathers grew in, he was perfectly ready. Perfectly ready. He was able to fly without hitting walls and windows and breaking feathers or breaking wings and beaks and feet. He was safe. And he can enjoy his freedom without hurting himself. And that is why we need boundaries, so that we can enjoy no longer being cage bound in a safe and healthy way. Because we want to be free, but we don't want to be free and be toxic. We don't want to be free and be abused. We don't want to be free and abuse others. We're not free when we're like that. We're not free. We're just running around reckless. And we're not doing that. We're not running with scissors anymore, remember? So I want you, after this week, I'm asking you to ask yourself, what am I saying yes to that my inner child wants to say no to? I'm not talking about anything really deep. You don't have to go too deep. Just something off the top of your head, real quick. What is it that I just keep saying yes to when I want to say no to? And you don't have to do anything about it right now. I just want you to think about it. I just want you to ask yourself, just to get you thinking. Because once you start asking yourself the questions and answering the questions, it's going to be a little bit easier for you to start making some decisions. That's going to be you opening that door to the cage. Because once the door is open and you leave it open, you'll start looking out. And it gets a little bit easier to get out of that cage. So, I hope you've enjoyed this talk. Hopefully, you've gotten something out of this. If anything, at least you get to know that Corwin's little flight feather cut wasn't a permanent thing. He's a happy bird. He was a happy bird. He had a happy ending. You guys, be safe out there. Take care of yourselves. Be kind to other people. And be kind to yourself. See you next time. Bye.